This, of course, is the movie club. Nick was the picker for this week's movie, and it was White Noise. And so I'm very curious to see, as he was the person who picked it, how will Nick explain what the plot of this movie is? Nick, take it away.
So asking what the plot of this movie is like asking, what's the plot of your life, Josh?
Oh, wow. Interesting. Living life, going to school.
The thing about life is there's many things happening at one time. It's not just a linear experience.
Sure.
And much like life, this movie is not a linear experience. Sometimes very big things happen to you, impactful things that you think you would like to explore more, and then it's 9 weeks later, and then we're just on to something else completely, and nobody ever mentions the other thing again. That's basically what this movie is.
That was a very good explanation. That is phenomenally well.
This is legally a movie.
Yes.
I loved the style of it. I liked the stylistic choices. It reminded me of like Wes Anderson type of movie, but people were talking way faster. And because like Wes Anderson movies, they use the same kind of vocabulary, but it's all very slow.
Mm-hmm.
This is that, but fast.
Yeah.
And I tried to do some research because this movie is based on a book.
Do your own research.
1985.
And the book is supposed to be a satire of things, but I don't think it translated very well over the movie. Because if you go in without knowing that, it just kind of seems like a lot of things happened.
Yeah. Kent, last night, I listened to my favorite movie podcast is called The Big Picture. It's on The Ringer, Sean Fennessy and Amanda Dobbins. So I went and found the episode when they talked about this movie. And they actually only talked about it for like 15 minutes. And that's normally not anywhere near as long as they talk about movies. And especially, they're both fans of Noah Baumbach, who is the director of this. But they said something in there, the main host, Sean Fennessy, did. And he loved this novel. He read it as at like the perfect age, apparently. He said that it was often described as unfilmable. And so I wanted to use that as kind of the intro into the discussion of, had you read the novel? And if you did you go in with that idea of, wow, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with this movie, given that so many had called it unfilmable for, close to 40 years before Baumbach was able to direct it?
Well, that was exactly what I was going to talk about.
Oh.
I don't like reading novels before that are made into movies because I think it's unfair to the movie if you're judging the movie, did it replicate the novel, right? That's not the movie should be a movie and stand on its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I read the novel probably shortly after it came out. It won the National Book Award in '85, and it sort of established Don DeLillo as probably one of the premier, I would call him a literary novelist, not a popular novelist of our time. And the book, if you think the movie is disjointed, you got to get a load out of the book, okay? So let me try to talk about why this thing got such mixed reviews, number one, and how it hit me.
Okay.
The movie is actually more linear than the book. And if you look at the story, the first third of it, I guess you would say, is about this mixed family, right? The Adam Driver's character who teaches Hitler studies at a university, but doesn't speak German.
So funny.
His goofy wife, who Babette, who is played by Greta Gerwig, who happens to be Noah Baumbach's wife, by the way. And then their kids they have 5 kids from 4 marriages or some number like that.
Yep.
And it's kind of a take on consumerism, right? American consumerism and that kind of life. Switch to second section of the movie. The airborne toxic event happens.
Great band.
Which forces them into a almost a refugee camp kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then in the third section, they deal with her addiction, I guess you could say, to this drug, Dayar, whatever.
Dialar.
There you go. And then it wraps up in this goofball, happy dancing ending in an A&P supermarket. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the linear. Okay. In the book, all of those ideas, including sort of get thrown out in the first of 4 sections, right? I mean, the airborne toxic event doesn't, but the drug stuff and the family, all of that gets thrown, and then it proceeds through 3 more sections where a lot of the stuff that's seen in the movie takes place, but it happens in even less linear fashion than in the movie.
Oh, wow.
So it is a, quote, postmodern novel, hence making it unfilmable, in part because the characters in the book are almost DeLillo's mouthpieces to say, here's what I want to say about this, and I'm going to use the character to say that. So then Baumbach has to put together a script. He fleshes out the characters. The characters are much more developed, and I thought acting-wise and performance-wise, Adam Driver was very good as this kind of, a schlubby, almost fraudulent college professor, right? I thought he was very good, and I thought Don Cheadle was hilarious as his academic rival who taught Elvis studies, right?
Then that whole scene where they're having a dual lecture about Hitler and Elvis. I loved parts of the movie, like the humor. Some of the humor was great.
It was very funny.
Like when they're at the Boy Scout camp and he's going to get tested, and he's like, "What's that stand for?" It's a simulated thing. So you're using the real life thing to practice the simulation. Yes, it was just His humor was so good.
I told Nick after I watched it. I loved the first half, and it's funny because I'm firing this up, and when Nick picked it last week, there was some responses from our listeners that was like, "Oh God, this movie sucks," and I kind of heard like, "Yeah, it seems like it's really weird." I told my wife, "Yeah, we're watching White Noise this week. Do you want to watch it?" He goes, "I didn't hear that movie was very good," and so I fire it up, and the first hour, I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy that people didn't like this," because I thought it was really funny, really witty. I thought that, the all of the name iterations that the airborne toxic event goes through, I thought was that was funny, and this movie comes out in 2022, and of course, people are going to read a lot of allegories into COVID, right? But then once the camp stuff kind of gets halfway through and forward, that's when it kind of lost me. And I found the second half of the movie much less enjoyable than I found what the first half of the movie was.
I can certainly see that. And as somebody who had read the novel, the first time I saw it, I thought, they got about halfway there in adapting the novel, and that there were the issues, and I think this might be what you're getting with, is there are too many tonal shifts, I would call it, in the movie for it to feel coherent, right? It feels like that first section doesn't really connect really well with the last section. Right? It goes from this funny satire, to this thing where people are shooting each other, for no apparent good reason, right? It's and the other difference with the novel, and I think I understand why they might have done this, why Baumbach went with a much lighter view, is that novel is dark, and it does not end with a happy dancing scene in the supermarket.
Oh, interesting. My biggest problem with it, like from the beginning, is I realized it wasn't a movie for me. I just hate the way that they just like spoke to each other, and I think it was said before, just a few minutes ago, just how quickly like lines were read next to each other, and like how fast everyone spoke, and they spoke in these like soliloquies that it was like a riddle trying to like understand everything that was kind of going on.
They did not speak like normal people.
I think that was supposed to be part of the satire too.
I did understand that after it took me a little
Yeah.
bit to get into it, and then I was like, okay, like I understand his role, I understand like how everyone talks
And
to
then
each
suddenly
other.
it's changing again. The movie's changing again.
Yeah, and then once it went, like you had said, Kent, it went into this like dynamic change, and I just kind of fell out of it again. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here anymore. And I wrote in my Letterboxd review, I said, this movie's not meant for me, and that's okay. And I still there were parts of it that I did enjoy. Like I thought, kind of like what you said, I wouldn't say the first half, the first third, I was like kind of giggling a little bit and I enjoyed it. And there was that scene with him in his bedroom and he sees the man like out and then he goes to the bathroom and comes back in and like lays in bed with him. Truly like almost horror aspects to it. Fantastic and well done. And then right after that, they're just like making dessert and talking about like a car crash and all this other stuff. And there was just too much that kind of just like confused me and moved around. But again, I understand the movie's not for me. I still enjoyed it for what it was, but it's definitely a movie I'm going to recommend to somebody else to say like, I just want to know. I feel like I can understand a type of person if I recommend this movie to them and they're like, I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like I can understand them as a person better.
I felt clickbaited by this movie because the description that I saw about the movie was this family basically, it was about, they focused on the airborne toxic event.
Yes.
And that was kind of what I went in on from the whole time. It's like, okay, we see them, this is their lives. Oh, this event happens because they established the characters here. Now it's the event, and now we see how they react to this thing. And then the second it's like 9 weeks later, it's like that's when I lost interest.
Did you see what genre it was listed under?
On
dark comedy and horror, which I would argue is nowhere close. Like the dark comedy,
definitely dark
I would
comedy.
say yes, but like I don't even know if you could say like whimsical or like witty or something. But like horror just threw me off completely.
Yeah,
like in that.
Kent, what box would you try to put it in terms of genre if you were going to do that? If you had
I
to
would
do
call it a dark comedy.
Yeah.
And watching it a second time or third time, I might have been the third time I watched it. I had the misfortune of seeing it twice within about a 2-week period when it came out. So that'd be the third time. The other thing it felt to me was it's about 30 minutes too long.
Yeah.
If it would have been cut down and sort of tightened up and made it a little more coherent, it might have been a really good movie.
If they would have talked faster.
There you go. Maybe quicker dialogue.
So at what point are you saying to like cut it off at? Like before they get to the hotel or like at which point?
I'm saying cut all the way through. I think they over.
Oh, okay. Right? I see what you're saying. Okay.
You make your point and then it drags out. You make your point and then it drags out. Cut throughout and turn it from, what is it, like 2 hours and 10 minutes or something?
It's a long movie. Yeah.
It did feel long. Yes, it did feel long.
And make it a 100-minute movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: once you buy into the movie, like it. After I got over my like initial like I don't like how they're talking and stuff. Once I got into it, and it really was like the dual lecture scene, I was all the way in. And then it loses you like halfway through when they get to like I really think like the car in the river was funny, but then right after that, I was like, I'm just kind of I'm lost at what I'm trying to like find again with this. So yeah, and maybe that was just the tone change in the movie too. Maybe that's what it was. That just kind of dragged my attention somewhere else.
The interesting thing is another interesting element to me is that the novel has sort of permeated part, at least, of the culture because of its status as this postmodern masterpiece kind of thing. And there's a rock band called Airborne Toxic Event.
Yeah, there is. I love them. They're great.
Actually pretty good. That's what I was going to say. And where do you think they got their name, right? There's
I guess I never thought about it.
Those kind of things have percolated through in a way, but it's only reached a very thin, right? It's not hit a mainstream kind of thing. And you're trying to turn this essentially art book into an art movie, and you're asking way too much, I think, from the audience in doing that.
It'd be like trying to turn Ulysses into a movie. Isn't that the book that's known for going in all these weird directions?
Well, I'm super curious to see. This is way down the road, but what
24 hours in one guy's life.
Well, and how Nolan's doing the Odyssey, like what in the world is that going to look like? You know, I thought that when that first was announced, Ken, I was like, oh, he's doing a spin, his own spin on the Odyssey, but it seems like he's doing the Odyssey.
It's not an Oh Brother situation.
No, definitely not.
I'm guessing it'll be brilliant. Is my guess.
I'm excited.
What has Christopher
Nolan guys here?
that hasn't been good? Name me
I
one
didn't-
movies.
Yeah, I didn't really like Tenet a whole lot, and I've given it a go multiple times, but otherwise, I pretty much adore everything he's ever done.
And a big, think about the possibilities of the Odyssey of set pieces of each of the places on the journey could be spectacular.
You know, Hans Zimmer's going to do that soundtrack too.
I'm excited for that part of it. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so that is White Noise.
Sure is.
I would cautiously subscribe to giving it a go. Again, I thought the first hour was really, really good, and then it just kind of lost me.
I really did like that weird scene at the end with the shopping thing.
Yeah, good song.
I'm with you.
I loved that scene because LCD Sound System made that song specifically for this movie, and then it was just like this very long, drawn out. I thought it was a really cool way of doing credits.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier, Kent, Austin and I were that we thought the credits were eventually going to roll in the traditional way. And then so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to hang out here until they do.
I was waiting for the Netflixing to pop up to be like your next movie or whatever.
And then it never comes up. So I watched the whole movie.
I was actually captivated by that whole scene. I thought it was so good.
Also, was that Andre 3000?
Yes. That was Andre 3000.
I like kept looking at him and I was like, is that who I think it is? I should have just looked through like the scroll, but
absolutely. Well, he's not on there as Andre he's on there as Andre. What is his last name?
I don't remember, but yeah, it's on there.